everyone. I want to do a video today in honor of my 3000th observation uploaded to iNaturalist and talk a little bit about my use of iNaturalist and what it means to me. iNaturalist has been essential um, in my amateur entomology and my projects to find and document the bees and the wasps of downtown Toronto, and more broadly, just in terms of my understanding of the natural world, and that's really what I want to talk about, the amazingness of iNaturalist as an educational resource and a citizen science project. So the idea with iNaturalist, and I'm not going to give a tutorial on it or anything like that. There's a million YouTube videos for that. But the basic idea of iNaturalist is it is a citizen science project in which you can take photographs of any species, upload it to the site. When you do so, the machine will suggest an identification of the species, which you can accept, or you can choose your own identification and override the machine. And when you upload it, you're also uploading metadata about where and when the photograph was taken. And the end result, after you have uploaded your observation, looks like this. You have your photo, the in this case, not the species, but the genus name. That is the degree to which I have been able to identify this particular insect. It shows you the map of where it was observed and when it was observed. Um, and uh, and what you see then is under the activity feed. Um, First of all, your suggested identification based either on what the machine has suggested or you. In this case, I don't know this species well. It's a species of fruit fly. I've never observed one before. And so here I'm not strong on dipterans, on flies, so here I relied on the machine to identify this, suggest an identification for me rather, and that is indicated by this little icon here. It means that I use the machine to suggest this identification, genus Eutrita, kind of fruit fly. And now what I'm waiting for is for a human to come and take a look at this and decide whether the machine was right, or or even if they can go further in the identification from the genus down to the actual species. And this is where someone else will make suggest an identification. When that happens, if that happens successfully, and there are different kind of contexts and conditions, but generally the idea is that a human will verify this observation, and at which point it goes from needing identification to becoming a research grade observation that has been verified and has therefore become useful in some way to science. Now, in this case, I didn't know this species. Amazing looking fruit fly, far more interesting than any I've ever seen, particularly this pattern on the wings, amazing uh, um, pattern on the eyes, and so forth. Very cool. I can learn about it instantly in a number of ways. First of all, I can just look at the map. If you zoom out, each of these red dots is another observation of this genus, and what it gives you at a glance is the distribution. And it shows you that it's mostly North America and the Americas, but it's also found in some other parts of the world. Often that means that the species has moved beyond, usually through human intervention in some way, or human activity, moved outside of its natural range and become an exotic species elsewhere. or even an invasive species. That is what this map sort of suggests to me, but I could be wrong. So let's see if we can read further on it. Well, all you need to do is click on the genus, and it will take you to the species page, which has high quality photos and a frequency chart. Right away, it tells you what its season is, when does its flight time begin, where is its peak, when does the flight time peter off. Here it's um, almost present the entire year round. You also see the difference between the green, which are the research grade observations, and the unverified observations, and there are always far fewer research grade observations than unverified. So that tells us right away about its kind of life cycle in the year, a little bit at least. The About section takes a Wikipedia entry. In this case, it's not really very descriptive, but you can start going down the rabbit hole. Okay, the family now has a full wiki page, so I can start reading about and learning about at least the family to which this particular species belongs. So this gets me started, and you can also pull up the distribution map right away. Uh, Trends, what are the most observed taxa in the last month? So what else is flying right now that is within the genus? A taxonomical tree, and similar taxa to help you with your identification. And this is very useful because things look like other things. What else? Okay, let's go to so this is my 3,000th observation. Let's go to my profile to get a better sense of this. So here's my profile page. Tells you when I joined. It tells you at a glance. It gives you the number of observations I've made, the number of species identified within those observations, the number of identifications that I have made for other people, and then other things. You can make lists and annotations. You can subscribe to your favorite taxa. Here you can see I do mostly bees and wasps and flies. And you can have a look at the observations here. So here we have our 3,000 plus observations, our species, and the list of, starting from the most recent, going down. Now, you can also look at it by species arranged according to the number of observations. This is very useful. Here's mine. My most frequently observed species is a hoverfly called an eastern calligrapher. Beautiful fly. I'm obsessed with hoverflies, so that's why it's at the top. This is not an indication of, the relative populations or frequencies of these species, but rather of my interest in them intersecting with their frequency. But it's a very useful way to kind of organize your observations and consider what it is you're seeing, what it is you're gravitating towards, and so forth. Doing this also teaches you a lot about identifying insects and or any species, and the challenges of doing that, particularly visually. iNaturalist observations obviously depend on photographs, and for most people this means a cell phone photo. Maybe you carry a reflex camera around, whatever your thing is, but it's a visual observation. Often it's just one image, so one side, and that is extremely limiting. That means that there are many species that using those techniques, that you can never identify, at least down to the specific species. And you learn this right away, which is a great education. And so for me, learning about, for example, hoverflies, what I learned right away is that there are some species, like the eastern calligrapher, that you can easily identify with a naked eye or camera, but other species, like the very next one, the long-tailed aphid eater, uh, this is a beautiful hoverfly. It's very common, but it's actually is not a single species. It's a complex, which means that it's a kind of category into which we put um, observations that cannot be brought down to a specific species. There are, if I remember correctly, there are two species this could be. And in order to figure out what you're looking at, you can't rely on just a photograph. You have to look at the thing from multiple angles. You have to, I think a microscope might be necessary. I can't quite recall, I'm sorry. And so these two things are very exist in different in different sort of levels. Then there are those species that can only be identified by genetic analysis. Um, Many bees are very difficult, and particularly common bees. Bee that I document a lot and I love is a sweat bee, and they can be extremely difficult to identify down to species. And There's another bee called a masked bee. These are tiny, tiny. These are bees the size of a grain of rice. I can identify. I know what I'm looking at with my eyes because I've done this for long enough to at least know that that little grain of rice is a sweat bee and the grain of rice beside it is a mast bee. But those are general ballparks. It's extremely difficult, at least for me, to go beyond that. And for that kind of thing, I rely on other experts on I'm not an expert, but experts on iNaturalist. So this is the other dimension of this. It's not just about you, but it's about your participation in a community of citizen scientists, which includes amateurs like me, of course, making up the vast bulk of users, but also professional scientists. That this dimension of iNaturalist is an absolute joy to engage with other amateurs and professionals to have your observations refined by other people who know more than you, to be able to feel a sense of pride when you know that your observational skills are solid enough that you can start to help other people identify, is an incredibly gratifying feeling. And it's exciting because you don't know how the work is going to be used. And in my case, I've been very lucky in one instance to have a scientist use some of my observations for very specific, to support very specific research on a species that we don't know much about, but I happen to find living literally 100 feet from my back door. Um, it's incredible what is out there, and also how you can connect to other people and use those experiences to generate knowledge that becomes part of the store of human knowledge, which is just the most amazingly wonderful thing. Uh, your observations will be used by scientists mostly in ways that are hard to kind of track because you become one data point amongst many others. But you can get a sense of the kind of science that iNaturalist is producing. There's a wiki in the forum part of iNaturalist that goes back to 2010 that tries to document scientific publications that use iNaturalist data, and as you can see, it just goes on and on and on and on. And that is just absolutely thrilling and gratifying to know that one's hobby, a pastime, just casual whatever, is actually contributing to the human species, to the benefit of our species. I love iNaturalist. It has been utterly transformative for me to use it. Every single observation teaches me something, um, and has led me down countless rabbit holes. Um, Not only in terms of learning about individual species, uh, their their scientific history. When Linnaeus or whoever first, in the West anyway, you know, documented the species that you happen to be looking at, which puts you in a kind of lineage of a venerable lineage, a sort of makes you a recipient of that, all of that work. Comes down to you in that moment of you encountering that living being. And so ultimately for me, and here all you all know me, you all know I'm a crazy hippie. Allow me to wax poetic. It is a spiritual experience for me to encounter other beings in our world, and to try to cross the gulf that separates us from them, a gulf of consciousness, of responsibility, of understanding, of experience. The more you do this, the more you are confronted with the utterly alien nature of life, the mystery of it all, the incredible spectacle of the natural sublime, which for me is in every insect I encounter. Um, there's a Japanese pioneer in the world of aquaria and freshwater aquatic plants named Takashi Amano, who is one of my great heroes. Eventually, I'll do an episode on aquaria. And I can't remember exactly how he said this, but he somewhere says something beautiful about uh, finding inspiration in nature's smallest creations. And I'm sorry, I can't remember the exact phrase because that should be my personal motto. But this is the spiritual experience I have had in my uh, amateur study of the natural world through this particular hobby. And perhaps you will have a similar experience, and perhaps you've had similar experiences. And from your perspective, I am naive. I don't doubt that at all. I am naive. And the sense of naive wonder in this endeavor is what keeps me going. So thank you for listening. Love you all.